just waiting for the go live button to activate. Yep, there we go.
Okay. Good evening. This is the Estes Valley Library October Board of Trustees study session. John Kruger is out of town, so in his absence, I will chair the meeting. I'm Lynn Lawson. I'm Vice President of the Board of Trustees, and it is 6:31 on, what is today? The 7th of October, and the meeting is called to order. The topic for tonight is the 2022 first version of the budget draft. And I guess I would invite the Finance Committee, David and Kay, to take it away.
Okay, Lynn. Good evening, all. Kay, please chime in as you can. This is unscripted. First of all, I would like to ask if everyone, the weather the last few days have reminded you, as it has me, why we live in the Estes Valley.
Absolutely.
No kidding.
It's been nice. So we're here tonight to discuss the budget V1. I have not had a long look at it. We have not had a finance committee prior to this meeting, so hopefully you've at least perused it. The spreadsheet was there, but in my opinion, we should kind of look at the budget highlights as presented very well by, I believe, Cindy, you wrote the budget highlights, if that's correct. But at this stage, because it's mostly in Claudine's and Cindy and the staff's hands, I will rely on you to do a lot of the explanations. Obviously, the good news is it's much easier, from my experience, to do a budget from a position of financial strength than wondering if the library needs to sell the furniture to meet payroll. As some, I'm sure, libraries unfortunately are in that situation. So, but I really thought the budget highlights were written well, answers a lot of questions, but I hope the rest of the trustees maybe have had a chance to at least look at them and have some questions. As presented with a budget surplus, as we always prefer, obviously the biggest change I saw was to the payroll structure, as we've all agreed and talked about this year with the payroll survey that was done earlier in the year. And it seems like a good time to bring the payrolls into that structure. But Claudine, I would like you to actually very briefly review the process and tell us how you came up with the final conclusions of the payroll.
You bet. Thanks, David. And in review, but you guys can't hear that, can you? There's an elk outside the library bugling. That's why we live in Estes Park, right? David, we began this process a year ago, and it was a question of how do we know our compensation program is accurate and market driven, right? Comparable to other public libraries in Colorado. So Cindy and I tried our best to determine it by looking at LRS data, Library Research Service data, and we made some cold calls. And then I finally called the town of Estes Park, who said, oh, we use a compensation consultant. She's highly regarded, give her a go. So with your blessing, we hired Lori Graves, you being the board, and she began the process in the fall and was able to use Employers Council data and created the report that she presented in January and then reviewed with all of you in, I believe it was June, the June study session. So we were able, with Cindy's many reviews and computations to see what was possible. It was my recommendation to the board that in this budget year, when we had quite a lot of staff turnover and vacancies, it was an opportunity for us to move closer to the targets, to the being on point where people should be paid. And here I'll bring in very briefly, Pete Johnson's background in HR guided me significantly in determining kind of a compensation philosophy where we could use a years of service calculation. So if someone showed up this year, or if someone has been here for 25 years or has 25 years of experience when they come here, we're able to determine where they are on the comp scale. So that 50% mark included all of that. And we determined that if we spent every line item to its full expression, we would still have enough to move our existing staff halfway from where we are now, or where we were then, to where they should be. So we did that, and then you'll see in this budget, I hope that wasn't too long, David. Then in the 2022, okay, in the 2022 budget is where we said, all right, can we go all the way? And really, to my astonishment, the answer is yes.
I agree, Claudine. Go ahead, Kay.
Question for Claudine. Is that because we have, some significant openings that, or, if we were fully staffed, what would it look like?
It's the question that needs to be answered, Kay. I completely agree. Part of that astonishment is in 2022, all positions exist, right? The ones that exist this year that are unfilled. And we assumed all positions filled January 1. There is only one change. If you read in the notes, we did not budget for a full-time ELL person, but we did budget for a part-time accounting assistant. So that is everybody all year, January through December.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Yes, Claudine, I agree with the current situation of not being fully staffed, which creates the surplus in the budget. It seems a good time to move into this payroll structure for a number of reasons. Topmost being attracting the employees that the library needs.
Yes, sir. And retaining.
Yeah. I think it's the place to start on this budget. I think when we get the final numbers on the tax revenue and such things, at that point, I will ask Cindy and hopefully maybe staff. That's an interesting addition to review. Plus, at that point, the election will have happened, and we'll know whether the citizens' initiative has passed. At that point, we will need to know an impact of that election and the final numbers. At that point, I think it will be more clear. But it seems like a prime opportunity to move the salary structure to the recommended levels. And I'm stating my opinion. I would love for Lynn and everyone to chime in on this too.
I don't really think we have a choice but to do it. And the money's there. I think it's in the long-term interest of the library to attract the best staff we can. And we have to do that with the competitive wage.
Okay, thank you.
I agree 100%. And also Claudine and I talked about other ways we could actually spread increases out over time. And, it wouldn't affect the bases because everybody's going to get to that base. But in terms of annual increases, one way to do it is to give the person an increase on their anniversary every year. So therefore, you're not actually getting everybody in the same calendar year. That's just a way to look at it. But yeah, as far as getting everybody caught up, I'm all for it.
It seems like a good time to proceed with that. And Claudine, two things. What is your projections? I mean, this is a hard one. What the labor market will tell, do you anticipate being able to fill positions in the next year? I'm not talking about the next month, but the next year. And also, does this change your perspective on the ratio percentage of salary to overall budget?
That is a really thoughtful segue. You were in my thoughts there, David, because of the calculation that Cindy did for us on the bottom of the spreadsheet. But if I can answer your last question first, if you all look at this, at the version 1 official draft, lines 195 through 197, Cindy saved us time and energy calculating on 198, the comp and benefits as a percentage of total expense. So it's 66.27 at this time, with everybody at, as Peter pointed out, base. I keep saying on point, but I think base is a more accurate term. So that is remember, if you don't have to remember, I submitted one of the notes to the board was, we really don't want to go above 68, or rather, I don't want to go above 68% of our expenditures towards all personnel expenses. And that was a little arbitrary. I mean, it was just based on my history of working as a director and a manager, but I'll be darned if we didn't achieve it. So David, wanted to acknowledge that. And thank you, Cindy, for that at the bottom. And then your first, sorry, David, what was your first question? I got all excited about Cindy's math.
Someone remind me. I was caught up in what you're saying.
I apologize.
You wanted to know if in the long range in a year.
Oh, would I have everyone hired?
If you're going to see people.
Thank you, Annie. At this point, we are out, and I think this might be in Joe's report for your regular meeting. I think we're down 3 positions. It's not, we have been building up. We have been hiring rather consistently. So the answer is we expect to have 2 of those 3 by January.
Okay. So you're anticipating at least close to full employment in next year, giving all the factors that may negate that.
Correct. Housing being right now, I can tell you, the ever-present problem of hiring new people.
Kind of a side question, Claudine. It just hit me as you said that. You're more in tune with what's going on in the town. There has been some new housing, the one on Peakview and Highway 7 there,
Yes.
and also the one right there on the road up to Stanley Village. Has that alleviated any of the shortage at all?
It sure has. And then Kay, I noticed your hand up and I promised to.
That's fine.
So what I know, David, I know from a conversation with Naomi Hoff, who is the director of the Housing Authority. And so this is it's not unofficial, but it's not in a written report somewhere. The units that were in that wonderful new development on Highway 7, the 1 and 2 bedrooms were occupied instantly, but there are a number of 3 bedrooms. And so those are for families, large families, or people willing to room. And those are available. The other ones were not available. And then Wildfire, I'm not sure what you mean, Stanley Village. I can't think of the other unit. I'm sorry.
Right there where the stables used to be. Sorry, across from the Safeway gas station where the
Where
urgent
Jimmy John's is.
Oh, yes.
and the urgent care center. Yeah.
Isn't that
don't-
just for healthcare?
I believe it was, I don't know the answer, Kay. Things have shifted. It was originally for visiting physicians, medical center employees, and J1s, which was an interesting mix. So I have to admit I'm out of touch, and I bet we could contact the hospital and they would let us know.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to get us too sidetracked on that.
No,
I
it's
thought,
interesting.
I thought above there was another employee housing, but I wasn't realizing it was more for medical personnel.
That's a little hearsay. Allow me to check my stories, make sure it's factual. What I can say is if the last housing report that came out, David, showed a 4-figure need for units. So
4-figure, wow.
4-figure need for units, and there are now dozens of units, just to put that in perspective.
Wow.
Okay, so yes, of course it's been positive, and I think the 3-bedroom mix was a wise choice for that development. It's just going to have to be adults rooming or larger families. We'll see what happens. So yes, it's available for the library staff. We'll see.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it factors into your future prospects of attracting employees. So
Yeah, and we always drop the story of what's above the bookstore. So thank you, Annie, the cliffhanger. And you know what we keep doing? By gum, we keep hiring people with dogs. So that's a problem.
Annie, are all the rooms filled up above the cliffhanger?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Yeah. And we've offered them each rotation to library employees, and we have 1 library employee that has one of the apartments.
Oh, good.
okay. Well, that's the initial. Go ahead.
Okay.
I think Kay had something.
Yes, Kay, go ahead.
Yeah, I think when we talk about, our hiring and payrolls and all these kinds of things, I'm actually kind of glad you're dragging your feet a little bit until after the first of the year before we jump in and are fully staffed. I think we really need to look at what is the outcome of our survey that we're going to do. It may impact the kind of person we hire. I also think we have to see how much comes back to the library. When I come in, it's pretty quiet compared to pre-pandemic. And
is.
I think maybe our hiring needs are going to change. So I'm really pleased that you're just not, I've got to fill these spots, is this delay allows some things to happen organically.
Thanks, Kay.
I think that's a very pertinent point, and the financial side is it provides more resources for decisions in the future. Looking at the current year-to-date figures, I'm kind of astounded. I mean, we always have the tax revenue in early, but it still is quite the surplus is going to be projected with the lack of salary fulfillment of the positions. So it'll be interesting. Any other discussion on the payroll issues, salary issues?
I do have another question.
Okay.
Claudine, you mentioned the 68% or under target.
Yeah.
And I seem to recall that you and Cindy were looking to get some sort of broader comparisons, but having trouble with other libraries getting apples to apples because different
That's
people have
correct.
other expenses. Have you had any luck getting a more comparable set of numbers yet?
I don't believe so. Cindy, has there been magic behind the scenes? I don't think so.
Not yet. It was actually up to me to resend
Oh.
that out. We did get a consensus at our last quarterly meeting, which we hosted here at the library in September, that they're all
Quarterly
willing-
meeting of the Colorado Public Finance Officers, Library Finance Officers. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Sorry.
Uh-huh.
So we got a consensus. I was waiting till our first draft budget was to you guys to put out our new numbers. And then we'll see if everybody responds like they indicated they would at the meeting. So
Great,
hopefully we'll have that in the next month or so.
great. Thank you, Cindy.
And I guess I was going to also mention we hadn't really discussed the additional accounting position, but that's an operations thing that I wasn't going to. But I really, watching the workload that Cindy's been doing and the possibility of maybe using it to segregate the duties a little bit more, I think it's time to do that. The library tried at first to see how much this new position was going to be after taking over the accounting from the town. And I think the number of hours that Cindy's has put in has justified this part-time position you're talking about. So, Kay, do you have any discussion on that?
I agree with you completely, David. I think, Cindy has picked up a much larger load by taking some of the responsibilities back from the city. But I also believe, and Claudine, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you are utilizing her to an extent greater than the previous accounting person. And we've got to make her time manageable. We can't burn her out. That's all I have to say. So
well, and that's true. But as time progresses, I really look at Cindy, you being able to stay on looking at the higher level of public finance accounting, which you have done at this point. You've learned quite a bit, but there's always more to learn. But I think it allows you more time to concentrate on the audits, making sure we're in compliance, things of that nature. And I'm interested to see what kind of assistant you may be hiring. So, but I think it was a pertinent thing to put into the budget, and I think it was time for that too. So, yes, Claudine.
Thanks for bringing it up, kind of highlighting that in the highlights, David. I just want to remind everyone, notice we called it Plan C. right? Because it wasn't for lack of trying to find
Yeah,
to meet the board's objective of segregation of duties and, sort of that internal audit. And we finally, said, okay, there's one way to get this done. So
Yeah.
that we can think of. So we're on plan C, and Cindy and I are pretty excited about it.
yeah, we
Well,
did.
I shouldn't speak for you, Cindy. I'm pretty excited about it. How are you, Cindy? Thanks.
No, we talked quite a bit about different ways and tried different approaches, and Cindy did lots of research, and I think it's time to move that to that plan C. So, all right, if there's no further discussion on the salaries and such, the next thing that was noticed was the scheduled facilities maintenance and issues like that. I would like you to just tell me what specific projects we're looking at on these numbers.
Cindy, did you want to chime in?
Sure. David, if you want to look at the spreadsheet, on row 190, these come right out of the facilities audit that was performed in 2021. And we looked at all of the things that they were suggesting be done in 2022. One of them is replacing those front motorized sliding doors.
Right.
Yeah, and a huge project that absolutely has to be done is the roof repair. We had some leaks last fall, and we need to take care of the roof. And Allison has been fabulous. She's on top of it, and she's got bids and people to come and do the work. And so we're going to get the roof squared away in 2022. And then was also the exterior wood siding and doors, paint and seal, just for weathering. So all of that is pretty expensive, but we were able to absorb it within the operating budget without having to jump into our capital reserves.
And that's really the point I wanted you to kind of make, Cindy. All stuff that I'm an infrastructure person, and without that repairs being taken care of, there's no library to have. So I think it's pertinent to this time. Open the floor to any other discussion on things. I think it's amazing you can absorb that into the budget this year. So anyone care to comment or anything? So again, it's just normal routine things that due diligence says that needs to be done by the library. So projecting a surplus so far in V1 of the budget. That's what we, as trustees, we want to see. Still unknown, of course, the final valuation is December 10th. The insurance is obviously a variable year to year. I don't know if you have any more comment on that, Cindy, other than waiting to see what happens. But I think it's pertinent that you alert us to the possibilities of the changes. Is there any updates that you need to give on that?
Not yet. That is going to be on our agenda for the Finance Committee for Monday. One other avenue I was going to look into, and I do think I even have a call set up later next week. So, so for right now, we've just got the increase at 30% for both property insurance and flood. The rest, we have an increase of 5%. Gallagher told me they're not going to have an estimate until later October, maybe first part of November. So, and in the meantime, yeah, like I said, we'll have it on the agenda and talk about it Monday at the Finance Committee, what other options there are.
Cindy, because we talk about Gallagher amendment so often, I just want to remind the trustees that
Yes.
Gallagher is the name of our insurance broker.
Right.
Sorry.
Good point. Yeah.
I didn't want to use her personal name, sorry.
But Cindy, I think it's prudent to include a guesstimate of increases in the budget, especially at this early stage. And
right.
Obviously we'll get updates on that. So I guess I talked earlier about the hiring of the part-time accounting, but we have discussed that. Remind me, I'm not clear. I know we're scheduled for the community needs assessment. Is there a time frame on that for when that may happen?
No, David. I've only been doing reconnaissance work. We've been, as a staff, looking at some of the results of other community needs assessments. So if again, this budget seems to be absorbing quite a lot, and we were due, by the way, for a patron survey of some kind. This was far more robust than I had in mind, but I'm excited by the possibility of what it will reveal, going kind of back to Kay's point of folks haven't come back from since the pandemic started. I'll be interested to see where interest may have shifted. So the start date, David, would be as soon as I can go through the RFIP process, because with a price tag like that, I have to get it through the board's approval, which means I need to do the classic find more than 3 that we can consider viable. So how about if I say first quarter, I think would be a reasonable timeline.
Well, I was going to ask even late spring into early summer. I think it's traditionally the time.
Let me be, I'm sorry, the RFP would be first quarter is what I'm saying. And then I agree
Okay.
with you. It would be spring, summer would probably be the process with fall results. That's my guess.
Would it be pertinent to bring in the former trustee Kay, who
Orton.
did prior ones for her experience? Yeah.
Hmm.
I haven't talked to her in a while. Is she still in town?
Oh, she's in town. Yeah. So I
Yeah.
saw her at a coffee shop.
Okay. I haven't in a couple of years now, so I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
But Kay was a former trustee who kind of oversaw the previous survey, didn't she?
She was highly involved, and I think would have a lot to offer. Yeah, I
Okay.
would agree
Well,
with you, David.
just at least consulting with her experience of the process. So,
For what it's worth, we are in, I was talked out of doing a Gantt chart, but we are looking at project management software for next year. So it's embedded in the budget because of the very question you asked. What's the timeline on this? When are the deliverables? Can we make sure it's in time for the budget? And of course, that would be a big one, but we have a lot of things in motion for next year. So just letting you know, once we've acquired the project management software, Allison is shopping for it now. You can trust that this will be the first thing on that.
okay. Okay. Any comments on that from anyone else? Okay. I'm just kind of going through the budget highlights, and at this point, I'm getting out of my in-depth of reading it. In the admin and is it technical services? Is that what I'm looking at?
Yeah, we'll revise that before it's published to the public. Sorry.
Okay. Either Claudine or Cindy, can you go kind of down through that and brief us on it? Doesn't have to be in depth, but just kind of the highlights.
Cindy, I'd love for you to jump in and talk about our appreciation and new consideration of Laserfish to start.
Exactly. Yeah.
I've never seen it in action, Claudine. I think
Oh,
you've
okay.
seen demonstrations
I have.
of it before. Yeah. But it sounds like it has a great deal of offer to offer. Our record retention person has been using it with other entities in town for several years and just cannot say enough about how the document flow is so much easier. I'm not sure how to describe it, Claudine.
What
Sure.
does it get used for?
Let me do my best. Okay. And then because it's talking about a lot of digitization. Okay. So let's talk about what would the results be once we segue to this. So when there's a public record request, a patron, an average citizen would end up going through our website, would go into Laserfish and would be able to recall the documents they want, because the documents are all managed by being scanned, optical character recognized, right? So that, just letting you know, so there's a public portal where all of our documents are online. And then there's an operational portal so that all of our records, which are now stored in a closet, which is about to exceed its space after 30 years of operating, all of those are digitized and sorted. There's another layer to it. So it's sort of the 21st century document management. It has a lot of components, Lynn, and one of them is the process of invoicing. I'm sorry to say this in a public meeting that's being recorded in perpetuity, but our invoicing process internally is probably still from the 1990s. And what we need to do is literally, Peggy walked in to get me to sign something. I've gone over to get someone to sign something. When you have Laserfish, the result is all of that is done sort of like a Google Docs process, except it's not just document management. It provides invoicing, and it allows the necessary people to interact with the document in an official capacity. So that was a lot of words. If you want to see it in action, you as a citizen could go onto the town's website, see what download the minutes from a meeting, you will see Laserfiche in action. So it's boring, important document management and efficiency. But you know what we can do? We can have Shelley Tressel, who does our permanent documents for the library, maybe do a brief summary so that you understand. I think that she's smart.
And is there a big effort with all the stuff that's in that closet that's about to explode?
Yes, that is part of the initial process, Lynn. You'll notice as you look at the notes and the details, the project itself is 5-figure. I think it's $16,000, but some thousand of that is the training we all get. Some thousand of that is purchasing the appropriate scanner. Some thousand of that is, this is the new world of digital platforms, right? We buy onto the platform and then we use certain modules or components. So we are spending under 10,000 with a particular company, but then the hardware and the training are additional and separate third party. Does that answer your question a little bit? Boring, operational.
Is the storage all this cloud-based?
It is. And we're late to the game. We're late to the game. Just want to let you know, this is not us being bleeding edge by any means.
No, it absolutely is late to the game. I'm just a curmudgeon on such things. Because we have all had internet interrupts. We've all had power outages, and there's always just this danger of whatever bunker and whatever state the cloud storage is at. You never know. Is there any way to provide redundant storage, or is it even cost effective?
I think redundant storage is part of the package. It's sort of like, and I hate to do this because Allison is going to watch this recording and beat me up tomorrow. Okay, here's the redundancy, because I'm going to get this mostly right. It's not that it's all on one server, right, David? It's on 10 servers across the country. So when one server farm breaks down, the redundancy has already been built into the process. Is it perfect? Of course not. Has Shelley already said, well, you're not going to need to access your hard copies, but you still might want to hold on to them, right? Some organizations still hold on to the paper. They put it in some sort of, I don't know what you call it, cold storage, I guess, but allow me to bring a more sophisticated voice to this, which would be Shelley Tressel, who I think will be able to answer with great detail the process. And I'll end on this, David. When she worked with the town, it was several years because it's a lot of documentation.
It is, yeah.
When she worked with, I can't remember which sanitation district, I think EPSD, she's under contract. She just continues to do their documentation at a very low level, right? It's just, she just keeps things scanning and going. She has said at our size, we're not going to need the level of sophistication that these two entities needed, right? So she's not trying to sell us a tanker when all we need is a really great Jetta, Volkswagen. Like, she's going to get us the product for our size. Just want to make sure you know that.
Well, at first blush, I'm taken aback that you tell me that nothing is perfect.
Sorry.
Not sure how to take that. And it's a real conundrum because I've been a paperless person in my office for almost 10 years now. So I understand that. Personally, I rotate static hard drives out of a safe deposit box myself for my business.
Wow.
Because I just have never been fully comfortable with the cloud. So as long as you all are comfortable with the redundancy of getting as statistically close to safe as you can, I'm fine with that. I just wanted that point brought out, though.
David, it is captured, and I'll make sure when we do a more thorough description for the staff and the board, because everybody needs to understand it's really the way the integrated library system operates so much of the library. This will be the second circulation system in many ways. So you can trust us to have more complete information, but also to capture your redundancy concern.
Okay. Let's move on unless there's other questions. Any other points you need to bring out in the budget highlights? Cindy?
Main thing I want to say is I want to acknowledge all of the work that the staff put into this year. It was really phenomenal. We asked them to, in years past, we just had the 2% increase and it was not as much thought went into it or work. We asked them to please start with the clean slate. They have zero and they have all this money. How do you want to spend the library's money? And they really came through with a lot of ideas, with a lot of notes, actually documenting them, helped me tremendously in putting the spreadsheet together this year. It was so much easier. And they have a lot of good ideas. We have some new people already, and so it's fun to see, the new exciting ideas that are coming out of it.
Cindy, are those ideas reflected in the budget?
Yes, if you look
Okay.
at the detailed Excel spreadsheet, almost line by line. Of
Okay.
course, it's a little cryptic, but so it's kind of just like our cheat sheet notes. So they're there in case, somebody has a question, we can look at that. Oh, I know what that is, or I know who to ask what that is. And we have a lot more information as, in prior years, somebody'd call up and say, what's in this line item of the budget? Well, I wouldn't know. There's no notes, and that particular supervisor is no longer with us. And so this way we know what's in there.
Okay. But I'm pleased to hear those ideas that we've been able to incorporate it and still look at a budget that's, we can attain. So good.
Well, I haven't went into detail into some of those, Cindy, but stepping back in general, I'm happy to hear that people are thinking of new ideas, thinking of the future, because I think it's going to be a dynamic future. There's a lot of changes that are going to happen, and the library needs to stay flexible. And it's good to hear that the staff is, how do I say it, nimble in their minds about what is needed and what may be the future. So I hope that trend continues. So Lynn, Pete, any comments at this point?
When I looked at the acquisitions were largely level from this year with a few line item exceptions. But it sounds like that still includes what people have in mind and new ideas. And are those new ideas showing up someplace else?
A lot of the new ideas are in the program team, the new program team, and then Allison, who is currently our interim supervisor for the technical services team, and some things she would like to do. Acquisitions is kind of in a funny place because like Kay said, people really haven't started coming back yet. So the ideas to make big increases in those, we don't know where that needs to be. We'd like one more year to kind of see what hopefully post-pandemic is going to look like and what kind of things. Now the digital ebooks, we invested heavily in that in 2021. We are electing to keep that flat in 2022 also, but mainly because Overdrive, one of our main companies, is gobbling up all of their competition. And these are companies that Kathleen was actually looking at maybe subscribing to also. But since Overdrive is gobbling them up, all that is now accessible to us for no additional fees through Overdrive. So we're getting more bang for our buck on the ebooks, even keeping the budget flat.
Great, thank you.
Cindy,
So-
that was perfect. And I want to give you guys a little preview. you might be surprised when you see during the regular board meeting that our circulation is technically up. I know it surprises me too, but it's because there are a few factors. One of them is digital access. Another factor is bringing the schools in, right? That circulation is now reflected because we're all part of the same ILS. And the third layer, which, I mean, you'll read all this, but I just wanted to tell you, is auto renewals. We learned from many of our neighboring libraries, like, why are their numbers stable and going up and ours aren't? And this is before the pandemic. It's because people have the luxury now of, if no one's on hold for the item, it'll auto renew for 2 to 3 cycles, depending on the material, and then it gets returned. So I'm not saying that more people are reading more, which is the goal. Okay. I am saying statistically, you'll see this is a time for analysis. It's a big shift, and those numbers are not, I mean, I don't think you thought it, Lynn, but those numbers are not an indifference. It is a holding pattern, waiting for a little more stability. And I really think most of the staff who have heard about the idea that a needs assessment is on its way are very interested in responding to the results.
Great.
What Cindy said is what I meant to say. What Cindy said.
Okay, I thought that was a very good explanation of what that involves. So I'm just kind of looking down the list here too. If that's all that you need to highlight, Cindy, as far as, I mean, the facilities, the Dorsus access system is, to me, is a no-brainer that needs to move forward. Maybe that's too strong a way to put it, but it seems pertinent to this time. Additional for the ADA projects, and maybe we should talk in depth about depreciation, huh? Oh no, you don't want to do that. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Oh, good one, David.
David, we can set a whole hour aside and we'll talk about it.
But the one other thing to point out is under technical services, below acquisitions is, I'm sure you're all aware, we went to a new integrated library system in 2021, CERSI, and invested quite a bit of money. Actually, it was during 2020 that it started, during the pandemic, and we lost people, and Jamie stepped up, and the whole thing is running smoothly. Well, they're to a point now where the base system is running smoothly, so they're going to reach out to some enhancements or other modules now that we can add on to it. You know, when you start a new system, it's hard to take advantage of everything it offers right at once. And so they've gotten to a point where now we can reach out there and get some of the things to enhance the system and really take advantage of why we went with this new company in the first place.
Will it be visible to patrons?
Yes, that's such a great question, Kay. Are we just nerding out back there, or will there be? So the answer is yes. And okay, this is where you're going to have to cut me off, David, because I actually get excited about these things. So can I spend 1 minute answering Kay's question?
I'll enjoy cutting you off. Perfectly.
Okay, thanks. So number one, it seems so simple, but the book list carousel on the external website. So a variety of staff members can do it, but if you were to look at the website right now, I'm going to pull out something that's hopefully not too obvious to all of you. There are no books on the cover of our website, right? By paying for this extra fee, it does like a river, right? Where it says, oh, here are the new DVDs, or you can hit a new tab. Here's all the new books, or here are all the holiday books, or hey, it's conflict resolution month. Here are all the books you might want to consider. So it does that for we call them, it used to be power users, but people who are looking really to come in and say, I just want to know where the new DVDs are. What are they? So that's the first one. The custom online user registration, okay, I'll admit that's a little nerdy. It's really for us behind the scenes, but it allows us to be accurate. So strike that one off. Number 3 is finally doing text messaging to patrons. So it can get pretty sophisticated, but mostly it's like, your book's in, your hold is in, but we can use it for like you have an overdue, but we'll mostly use it for positive to start. 4 and 5, nerdy back of the house. Sorry, Kay, just operations. Number 6, nerdy back of the house. Number 7 is for the patron. And what it does is if we do it right, and it's going to take us a little longer, very briefly, we are part of a statewide system of interlibrary loan, right? But what if we do it right, the patron looks for the item, we don't have it, and it says essentially try Prospector. We'll have to train the patrons on what that means. It immediately takes them without unlogging, going someplace else. You just go to the statewide interlibrary loan. So you go immediately to 2 million items or however many millions of items there are, I can't remember, across the state, that are in that system, because it's not 100%.
So we go to that system?
Yeah, you go right into Prospector. So
okay, well, that's not a great system though.
You're not on it yet. You're on Swift. We're all using Swift.
Okay, that's the one that's...
We're leaving Swift, Kay.
Oh, good.
And we're going to Prospector.
That one's painful.
Right. It is. It was not designed to do patron initiated. It was designed for the ladies and the gentlemen behind the scene to process people's requests. This removes the middleman and gets them there. So that's for the public. And then the last 2. I'm really excited, David. These last 2, super nerdy, good times. Okay. Catalog deduplication. So Cindy, please left right at me. What it means is, since we've got materials from Eagle Rock and the school district and the library, right now the catalog says Harry Potter, book 1, right? It just shows in the catalog, Harry Potter, 1 record, Estes Valley Library. Harry Potter, 1 record, Eagle Rock School. Harry Potter. Okay. What deduplication does is, it shows them all in 1 record, and then it says you can get them at the following locations. It's like more Amazon-like. Okay, that's the way I would say it. And then the 9th one, please don't ask me to tell you what that acronym is. That Jamie will tell us.
Excuse me.
But God bless you. But she talks about Furbrush all the time. That it makes me feel like, yeah, Furbrush. Then that's a whole other level, and I'm almost done. What it does is, you got Harry Potter. Not only the different locations are in 1 catalog record, but the formats. So I want to look at Harry Potter Deathly Hallows. I can see all the formats and all the locations in 1 result. Okay, I knew you were a nerd. You love that, don't you? Like, isn't that awesome?
Yes.
It just costs money. Costs money. So I think saving the time of our patrons, having a more sophisticated catalog interface with the public. So I think I'm going to say 60% public, 40% staff. Yeah.
Well, just
thanks,
hearing
David.
that we're not going to be using that other system for the
interlibrary loan.
Oh gosh.
Swift. You're
I'm
ready
so
to let
excited.
that go.
Yeah.
Good.
I'm so excited.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, David.
Well, Claudine, don't worry about that. You're looking at a person who has actually read books on depreciation. So
why do these things get us excited? I don't know, but they do. Yes.
No, it does. But, getting excited about efficiency is too generic of a word. It's really bringing the user interface into current standards.
Right.
And I think that's all a good thing. So I agree with that, and I can see that. So, all right. Well, I think go ahead, someone.
I was just going to say, Annie, anything to jump in with, or?
No, this is all great information, and I really want to learn about depreciation too.
You all could have an appreciation party.
Well, Annie, we don't want to keep you in the dark.
I know I am in the dark right now.
Hey, David, I have something to say about the Friends and Foundation.
Sure.
Annie, I want to give you and Sarah credit. One of the reasons that, it's maybe something that's new that we didn't capture in this is part of the reason we have a surplus is also, this is the first year the Friends and Foundation are giving us 200,000 plus operating expenses rather than 200,000 straight. So credit to you. That is a big difference from this year.
That is huge, Claudine. Thank you for bringing that up, because I'd actually meant to do that and neglected to do so. So yes, Annie, thank you so much.
Welcome. It's about time.
Well, it's just working in coordination with you and what's needed this time, and the Carnegie Foundation has certainly stepped up to that. So it's nice. Thank you, Claudine. So I think that's a fairly good overview of B1 of the budget. Thank you, Cindy and Claudine, for getting to that to us in such a timely fashion. I think that gives us a good setup for the formal board meeting October for the formal presentation of the first draft. And as you know, after that, we have the public meetings of the budget in early November, and we'll finalize that at the December meeting. So, Lynn, I think that wraps up the discussion. So I will throw it back to you.
Thank you, David. I just want to reiterate what you said. Thank you to Cindy and Claudine and all the staff who participated and move this forward. It sounds like it's been a really healthy process this year, but I also know that that's a lot of work that's represented there. If no one has anything else, it is 7:21, and I will